All right. Is everybody logged in? Do we want to give it another minute? Looks like we have a few people already here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the Practice Transformation Grant Vendor webinar. Today's presentation is going to be from Blue Agilist. They are another vendor participating in our Practice Transformation Grant program. Their team will walk you through the services that they're able to provide and the ways that they can support your practices in strengthening operations, improving care processes, advancing transformation goals, etc. So as you listen, don't hesitate to ask questions. Please feel free to use the chat box during the actual presentation. Someone will be monitoring the chat box there. And then otherwise, we'll reserve actual verbal communication until after the presentation is finished. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you. Remember, this is now your opportunity to understand how Blue Agilist works within EQIP and the transformation method. So with that, I will turn it over to Blue Agilist. Mitchell?
Hey, thanks, Kim. Um, it's been a while. We started this process with I'm Mitch Galloway. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for Blue Agilist. We started conversations with y'all a year and a half ago, I want to say, going through an RFP, being selected as one of a handful of vendors to get a chance to talk to you. We went through this process a little over a year ago, and then with all the changes in the administration, things got paused. So we're back. We'll give you a refreshed version of what we do and how we do it. So if you were on the call last time, you'll hear some similar things, and if you weren't, hopefully you'll hear something that'll get you engaged. Blue Agilist company based in Indianapolis, Indiana, with staff all over the country, with a particular presence in the Mid-Atlantic. So in your backyard. The purpose of the company was founded around implementing best-in-class solutions. The physician founder of the company, in fact, had a passion for accelerating the adoption of evidence-based best practices. So that was really kind of at the foundation of who we are and how we go about doing what we do. So everything is focused on what's evidence-based, and knowing that in order to make those changes happen, work has to be done differently within the clinical workflows in the practice. So it's about understanding that this is in fact best practice, but it has to be adapted and adopted to fit in your organization. It has to be localized to how you operate, to who your patients are, and to who your staff are in order to make it work. Our experience, the company was founded out of a successful project with CMS called the Great Lakes Transformation Project. We worked with over 15,000 providers and 2,200 practices with serving 10 billion patients, and had remarkable success as measured by CMS. Producing over $1 billion in savings, along with simultaneously 70% reduction in patient harm events, a significant reduction in unnecessary readmissions, and increases in net promoter score. So I say all that to say, yes, they saved money, but they also did it the right way. They did it by improving quality. They did it by improving patient experience and patient satisfaction. In particular, so that's the company, but really what you care about is likely who's going to be working with you. We have on the phone the person who'd be your primary resource supporting the CRISP practice work, Melanie Miller. You can see on the screen her experience. I would just want to emphasize that she's actually done this kind of work in Maryland. So not just what was done around the Great Lakes, but this is work that she had done as the person responsible for getting the work done. And there's going to be a theme there. So as she's delivered significant benefits through very similar processes. So know that you've got somebody who's not learning it as they go. They've done the work that you're trying to accomplish, and they've been very successful doing that. And then her boss, Erica Stewart, who will be supervising the project and providing expert guidance for her as well as our vice president of operations. And she was a senior leader, an early employee and a senior leader at Aledade, led that one of their ACOs and did similar work for other ACO conveners with significant success. So she knows, she's been doing it for a long. Both she and Mel have been doing this for a long time. They know kind of in the nitty gritty work that has to be done to make it work. So it's not a typical traditional consultant who hasn't really gotten their hands dirty doing the work. These are people who know how to get the work done because they've done it. They've gotten to work every day um, with the priority to accomplish these goals and know how hard it is and know specifically what it takes to make it work. We want to make sure you understand, we understand what you're going through, that success in the kinds of programs that you're focusing on requires driving changes in daily actions at the practice level. So again, you've been working on these kinds of things for a while. You understand what it takes and how hard it is to get people to change their behavior and to change their workflow on a daily basis. And what we've figured out through all of this experience is what it takes to make that happen consistently and at scale. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that in the next part of the presentation. The company, as I described from the work with the Great Lakes Project, was really purpose built to do this kind of work. The way the company has been designed, the tools, the approaches, et cetera, are all built around a proven implementation science technique. How do I actually get people to implement things that we need to get them to implement? I don't tell them to do it. I don't just hand them a book, hand them a playbook. We have to actually get into the weeds and help them understand why it makes sense for them, what to do, how to do it, and who needs to do it in order for the work to be successful. We have deep experience in aligning and success in aligning workflows around how to change the workflows to deliver the quality metrics in order to achieve the incentives and to kind of work our way back from the incentive to the least amount of effort required to accomplish the most in benefit. At the root of all of this, I put this screen up because when we get out into the world and we start working in practices, these are the kind of things we hear. And we wonder why we're sometimes having success trying to accomplish our goals. We talk to the frontline staff in a practice, and these are the kind of things we hear. They don't really understand why. They don't know why we're doing what we're doing, what they're supposed to do. They're kind of told they're supposed to work on this, and they don't know what this is or why they're supposed to do it or how it's supposed to work. So you'll see as we go through our approach that the foundation of our model is generating engagement and alignment at the local staff level to make sure people understand why they're doing what they're doing, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and who's supposed to do it in a very granular, detailed way, so that that you don't end up having these kinds of comments. Now into the weeds a little bit about what the process looks like. It's presented here as a cycle because it's not a one-time through process. It's an iterative process, but we start at the top. We start by understanding with you, looking at your data and looking at your current workflows and how your current workflows compare to what we know are evidence-based best practice workflows, to identify those places where those changes you need to make that will generate the best results in the shortest period of time with the least amount of effort. So the beginning part is, I hate to call it assessment because that sounds kind of reductive, but it's getting to know you. because at the root of success of this kind of work is localization, um, turning that evidence-based best practice into something that's localized and will work in your practice, with your patients, with your providers, with your staff. And so the first step is always understanding what that looks like and how you're unique. And then therefore what bubbles out of that is the first one, two, or three things you need to go do. So by understanding who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, what's the one or two or three things you can do that'll get you the most benefit, that's what comes out of the first bubble. Then we cycle to the second bubble in the lower right, where we work with you to define a very specific implementation plan and what's necessary to make that work. Again, back to the once we understand the why and once we understand the what, then how do I do it and who has to do it? So we'll tell you in a minute how we're able to do this efficiently and effectively for you, and how we can deliver the kind of results we deliver, um, uh, using these evidence-based practices. But understand that it's a very defined, very specific implementation plan, um, and very short term. So what do you accomplish in the first week? What do you accomplish in the first 3 weeks? What do you accomplish in the first 6 weeks? So a lot of this work becomes very iterative. If you're familiar with the concept of a sprint cycle, a lot of this work happens in sprint cycles where you make the change, you see what you gather feedback, you see whether or not the metrics are moving, and then you're able to revise your intervention as necessary and quickly in order to get improvement quickly. Our experience with that, to what we find in the first circle in terms of engagement and alignment, if you have high engagement, high alignment in the first circle, generally literally within weeks, you're starting to see movement in the leading indicators. If we have to spend more time in the first circle making sure we get good engagement and alignment, it might take 8 weeks to 12 weeks to see movement in the leading indicators. But in any case, it's fast, that you're able to see movement quickly, in the leading indicators. And I'm using that term. The third bubble on the lower left hand side says, all right, we're going to a lot of the things you're tracking are what we would call lagging indicators. They're things you don't know how you did until after you did it, and you get some report 30 days, 60 days, 90 days later that says my numbers moved or they didn't. And one of the keys to success we've found is to identify the leading indicators of those lagging indicators. What are the things that if you see movement today, this week, you know you're going to see movement in the future in the lagging indicator? Other people sometimes call those outcome measures and process measures, and leading indicators are often would be considered process measures. Did I do it? Did I do something today that I was supposed to do that I know that if I do it, it will lead to a better outcome in the future? So that, and then we iterate as you see the leading indicators move or not move. That leads you to cycle back through the process to find the next thing you might need to change or might need to improve in order to get the leading indicator to move further faster. So that's the basic process. I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of how we do that work. We have a suite of tools that we use behind the scenes to help make that happen. We have you saw in the early slides that we're an AI-enabled technology company delivering this work. Behind the scenes, there's an assessment that we can rapidly, through basically interview, understand from a qualitative perspective how you're performing against evidence-based best practice and a series of workflows that we know that will deliver the outcomes you're looking to achieve. So we're doing this again. Don't overestimate the amount of work spent in the assessment. It's literally an hour or 2 hours of time in an interview or a series of interviews to understand what you're doing and how you're doing it against evidence-based best practice. What comes out of that, coupled with your data, who you are, how you're performing in these lagging outcome measures, will lead to a very quick and simple roadmap that's specific to each side of care, in terms of what your first 2 or 3 actions ought to be to drive benefit. And then the tool comes back and is useful. The assessment is useful to us to come back and say, all right, how have you changed over the course of the last month or the last quarter? Have we seen significant improvements in those underlying best practices or workflows that we would predict would lead to better results in the future? The second tool, something we use again behind the scenes to help build your work plans, is that we have a tool called Smart Assist that is a purpose-built generative closed large language model tool that helps us ask it questions about your practice and build workflows specific to your practice in seconds, not days. So we're able to very quickly identify what your needs are, build the workflows that you'll need that are customized and localized to you based on the data that you provided us, and get that work and then give you implementation guidance. So we're running into a problem. We can ask what the evidence-based best practice solution is to that, and it will come back and help build things for us very quickly. So we're able to deliver work to you in hours and days, not in weeks and months. What's allowed us to deliver this work at scale with a relatively small team. As opposed, we're not selling you hours of time. The more hours we sell you, the better. We're selling you outcomes and deliverables, and the tools behind the scenes help us do that. Just a little look behind the scenes at that. What goes into the proprietary closed large language model, the LLM. All these evidence-based solutions. Well, where do you get them? Well, we get them from trusted sources, PubMed, journals, peer-reviewed journals, et cetera, that are all fed into the database, plus your assessment results, plus your protocols and processes that we capture, plus your team staffing and structure, your care setting and patient demographics, things that help localize the answers to you. And we have the ability in that first box to customize that to the extent that you prefer certain journals, you don't like certain journals, you have other sources of best practices you want to feed into the large language model. We have the ability to localize that to you, to customize that for you. We have some customers that have put in place their policy books, their series of what they've determined to be best practices into the model to help spit that out for people as well. And so the result of that sort of behind the scenes tool is it allows us to localize and create actionable site-specific interventions. I keep coming back to that. It has to be something that's localized to that site based on their data. It gets things done faster, and there's often an unknown cost of delay. If it takes me 3 months versus I can start it in a week, how much benefit did I get from doing that? And it's if you want to get into the weeds of the AI tool, it's a proprietary AI tool that was built for this purpose. You own your data. It's designed built around enabling this kind of performance improvement in practice transformation. The only tool we know in the market that does that kind of work. And then the last part of the toolkit is we talked about real-time performance measure tracking with lead measures. I spent a lot of time already on leading indicators. So how to turn your lagging, let's line up the leading indicators, agree with you. We'll present to you through the process what we believe from the evidence are the best leading indicators. We'll help you. We'll agree on what those leading indicators are. We'll start gathering and tracking that information so that you have an ability to know in real time whether or not you're doing the things necessary to move the lagging indicators when you actually get the data on those coming back to you. So again, part of the process will be building this kind of a simple dashboard for you, so you understand. You'll be able to see how you're performing. In terms of our process, we get started pretty quickly. As we said right out of the bat, we'll start to get to know you well. We'll look at all your data. We'll gather additional information that we need. We'll do the qualitative assessment. We'll identify what are those handful of things that need to be done. But the main dot point on the under getting to know your practice is the last dot point. That's to gain alignment and understanding. It doesn't really make sense to keep moving down this path until we have make sure that we have the right level of alignment and understanding within the practice to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes we walk right in and it's already there, and sometimes it takes 30 to 60 days to build that. So that first step is critical to success downstream. So we'll take as much time as it takes to help build alignment and understanding around the goals you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to go about accomplishing them. With at the beginning during that sort of month 2 to 12, from starting in 2 through the rest of the cycle, we'll be identifying performance improvement tactics. This is an intervention. Let's do this intervention. Let's sprint on it. Let's see how it improves. Let's gather feedback. Let's optimize it, make it permanent. If it works, if it doesn't, let's refine it and make it better. Are we getting where we need to go? Yes, great. If we're not, let's add another one. Then let's add another one. Then let's add another one. So that's a month through 2 through 12 in that section is more of an iterative process, working with you as necessary to continue to build and refine the improvements. Starting in month 3, one of the commitments to the process are these facilitated discussions. Focus on okay, what are y'all finding across the practices? Are there opportunities for lessons learned? Are there opportunities for shared best practices? So that's built into the process starting around month 3. And then in the last quarter, as you guys have gone through all of that work, we'll be building the sustainability. We believe that we're actually doing a lot of the sustainability work from the very beginning by focusing on engagement and understanding and the why as part of the process. We usually get the things we do even as early as month 2 to 4 are built for sustainability. However, there's one of the things that we want to make sure we do before the term ends is that you've locked those in. You've locked in what you need to lock in so that you're able to continue the work once we're not around to support you. So that's the end of the formal presentation. Would love to answer whatever questions you have. If it's okay with you, I'll stop sharing. But I could go back into the document if I need to go back into the document. But does anybody have any questions about how we do what we do, or any questions of Mel from her experience in being successful doing this work?
Don't be shy now. Now's your time to ask.
I've also included my email on the. I'll distribute. Kim, I imagine you'll distribute. You can distribute
Yes,
the document.
yes.
So
And the
uh,
recording. There will be a recording of this, so that'll get distributed to everyone as well.
great. So when we're done, I'll send the email to Kim. I'll send the document to Kim. She can send it out to everybody. My email's included on the last page of the document. So feel free if you've got questions that you either can't think of now or don't want to ask in a public forum, feel free to reach out to me directly and we can
Let's
answer
see.
whatever questions you have.
Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Charlotte Mars asks, from claims, does the data from claims through, it comes through CRISP? Yes, it does, Charlotte. Has there been any issue with claims lag? Well, it's the normal lag that we would have, that's already in the portal. Typically, we are, I want to say a quarter and a month behind. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's how far behind we are. Michelle Bragg wants to know, do you have experience with Next Tech SRS EHR?
I don't know. Mel?
Is that similar to next gen? I've definitely used NextGen. I don't know if I've used Next Tech, but I've used a wide variety. I've been exposed to a wide variety of EMRs and pretty tech savvy, so it might be one that's come across my plate since I've been doing this, but I'm not positive.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we can get back to you directly with, so if we'll do the research behind the scenes to see if that specific one. I think Mel's point, in 2,200 practices, um, or more, we've seen just about everything there is to see. So, uh, but it might not be off the top of our head, to be able to answer that. But we can get back to you specifically.
Okay. Tara Dowell has asked, "Hi, so our office already is involved with Aledade, so is this similar to that?"
Great question. It is similar. It goes another step beyond what Aledade is doing. In fact, again, that's when Erica came from Aledade to us, she says she wished she had our capabilities when she was at Aledade. We've been we are in discussions with Aledade about how Aledade uses what we do to do what they do better, faster. So I don't want to overstate that, but yes, there would be incremental value to, for us to work with you, even if you're working with Aledade. But if you're working with Aledade, that's a great sign
Yeah, it is.
in that you've got engagement, you've got alignment, you're making an investment in that to some degree already, and I think we would superpower that. I think supercharge that.
Okay, Michelle Bragg says, "We are a brand new orthopedic practice and in need of a lot of hand holding. We have CRISP accounts, but do not even have our population uploaded. Are you able to help with us?" So, just real quick, I don't want to
Sure.
step on your toes, but CRISP can also help you with making sure that you get your population uploaded. So, Michelle, if you do need help with that, please reach out to either your account manager. If you don't know who that is, just send an email to equip@crisphealth.org and I can set you up with whoever your account manager is. They can certainly help with that. But then I will now let Blue Agilist speak.
Sure. Couple things. What Kim said in, in terms of getting your data loaded up with CRISP, that's definitely a CRISP thing. That's not part of the scope of the process, that they've asked us to participate in. However, we have been successful at working with people that don't have any good claims data at all. So, um, that adds value because you understand what the scorecard is, and you're able to know that's the lagging indicator, right? You're going to need that data to see the lagging indicator to know whether you're making progress or not, and for us to be able to know what's the lagging indicator that needs to move the most. So there will be some, we'll be guessing a little bit at the beginning. But again, having done as much of this as we have, we know that there are a handful of things you likely need to focus on right out of the box. So we can start to work. Well, it won't slow us down if you don't have the data yet. The data will inform us as we keep moving, but we'll be able to make significant uh, progress in the short run. And again, it's a great time of, I can't talk too much about other clients, but we one of the use cases that people use us for is when they're bringing practices together or they're just starting new groups, is to help understand what good should look like, what should be our practice, right? You have the opportunity to kind of come together and say, this is how we want to do it. This is why we want to do it. So a relatively new practice is a great time to be doing this kind of work.
Absolutely. She has another question. She says, "Is it mandatory to upload our Medicare population?"
I
So
think.
for the EQUIP program, it is not mandatory. However, with that said, you're leaving a lot on the table if you're not. And the reason why is because there's many things that you could be utilizing, many tools that you could be utilizing within CRISP that would help you with your Medicare population. So, but yes, in order to participate, it is not mandatory because we do get your claims from CMS.
Great.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, it's oh, more. Okay.
We got a couple more. So
Yep.
Dr. George asks, since we are doing claims-based reporting, which is done by the practice, and how is Blue Agilist going to help with that practice?
So the primary focus of our work is on understanding how to change how do you change workflow in order to make a metric move. Our typical use case when we're called into a practice is uh, my I can't move. People tell me I need to move this number. Like I got to get this number to move, and I don't know how to do it. Or I can read online how to do it, but I don't know how to actually make that work. And so our experience and proven track record has been helping people understand what specific changes in workflow. I'm talking nitty gritty. This is last mile stuff. To use that analogy, but this is the nitty gritty work that needs to happen in order for you to consistently adjust your workflow to do the thing that needs to be done to move that metric. Um, Whether it's a readmission metric or what's an unnecessary, whatever the metric is, it's usually something very specific that needs to be done in the practice, needs to be integrated into workflow in a consistent way that doesn't add work to people's already busy schedule, so that they can consistently deliver against that. One of the things we hear is that with all of everybody's dropping a new requirement on you in the practice, and it ends up kind of being a whack-a-mole sort of approach. Okay, I've got to fix here. I'll solve that. I'll add this workflow here. I'll solve that. I'll add this workflow. Before you know it, you've added 15 or 20 workflows, and everybody's busy life has gotten a lot busier, and uh, there's no it's you have to decide what's important today. What am I going to focus on today? And one of the things that ends up happening through our process is how do you collapse those workflows together so that one thing solves five problems? And so the integration of the interventions necessary in order to move the most metrics with the least amount of work is really a critical aspect of how we do what we do. Dr. Bustani, who's the physician scientist, who's the founder, one of the founders of the company, is still in practice, and it's so understanding what life is like in real life practice and how we have to. You can't make life harder. You have to make life easier in order to get people to adopt the kinds of changes necessary to move these numbers. Is sort of foundational to who we are.
Okay, Charlotte, Melanie, how did you gain buy-in from providers or staff for changes that are necessary? Good question,
I
Charlotte.
love this question and I love answering it. I have worked with all types of providers. I've worked with providers that are seasoned providers in value-based care, as well as, those that had nothing, had no knowledge whatsoever. Some of the doctors I've worked with in rural areas had no knowledge of value-based care. So my experience is very extensive from you're doing great, how can we help you do even better? To, you really need to learn about this and what can we do to get you on the right track? How do we get you knowledgeable about it? So how I gain buy-in is it's really important for the providers to know this isn't just about money, but it's also about making sure your patients are receiving the best care. When you tie those two in together, a lot of the old-fashioned providers that don't know these programs, They just want to see their patients. They don't understand. I don't need this extra money, but it's not really about the money. It's really about taking the best care of your patients and making sure that your patients are receiving the highest quality of care as well. So that's really, I've had a lot of success in kind of explaining it to the providers that way, and you know, just giving a few examples of some of the things that we're looking to improve upon or change. And the providers say, "Well, I'm already doing that." Well, you're doing it with half of your population. Let's try to do it with all of your population. And then they see, the results, and just really tying into the total care of the patient, instead of just focusing on the financial aspect of the program. I've definitely received a lot of engagement from the providers that way.
Thank you, Melanie. That was a good question.
It was. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I like more Melanie questions.
Bring them on.
Also, don't be afraid of like just raising your hand. We can certainly, you can certainly talk to them. Okay. Going once. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap that up today. As Mitchell said, he's going to provide everyone with an email address for you all to reach out if you have any other specific questions for Blue Agilis. And as always, you can reach out to equip@crisphealth.org, and we can certainly veer you in the right direction as well as far as reaching out to Blue Agilis. So, since there's no other questions, I want to thank everybody for your time. As Mitchell said, I will be gathering all of the recordings and the slide decks from all of the presenters and sending them out to you all, so you all can review anything that you want to review and make your decisions accordingly. Okay? Everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Blue Agilis, for your presentation, and we will talk soon.
Great. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.